Hey there everybody, and welcome to RPG Horror Stories that will make you cringe with DnD Doge. And boy do we have some cringy ones today, including a tale about a player that can't stand being told no, a story about a dungeon master that gets a tad too personal with a player, and much more. And I think we're going to need some protection from the psychic damage in this video, so here's Alice to bless us with a song before we delve in. There we go. Now that we have our bardic inspiration, let's get right into these stories. You stole from us! By Reddit user, VortexTM. I just remembered this minor horror story from a few years ago. A friend of mine was going to run Rise of the Runelords from Pathfinder, and even though I hadn't played since my teenage years, he invited me to the group. The relevant actors are the DM, my friend, and War Cleric, another player he had invited, whom I did not know prior to the game. Sessions 1 through 5 went fine. We had fun, and the group seemed to be having good energy. Then along came Session 6, in which we are clearing a building at the behest of a cleric NPC, who is our contact throughout this part of the adventure. So we were a bit stupid, and did not retrieve a certain book from the building, a warehouse, which was a critical clue on the campaign. Our group retreated, rested, and went back to see the cleric NPC to discuss things. The cleric NPC brings out the book he recovered from the dungeon, and War Cleric immediately starts throwing a fit, saying that the book should be ours. The cleric NPC says that they had found it after the party left, and that he needs to study it. The War Cleric keeps insisting that it should be ours, and starts accusing the dungeon master out of game of keeping loot from us. The cleric NPC explains that he needs to study the book, and that War Cleric is welcome to come by and study it anytime he wants, but that he will not be parting with the book. The dungeon master patiently explains out of game that the book was meant as a clue in the campaign, and that it has no other value, and that since we missed it, he had simply used this as a way to help us further the campaign. Though the War Cleric is having none of this, and keeps ranting and angrily accusing DM, even though everyone else has understood the situation and cares little for the book. We try to intervene, but he is obsessed with this book. Then the rest of the session is spent with DM trying to calm down War Cleric, but still denying him the book, while the rest of the players sit awkwardly. Now, I know my friend, the DM, and he can be a bit stubborn, but I assume he wanted the NPC to keep it so he could guide us further in the campaign if needed, since we seem to be missing quite a few obvious things in our first chapter. A few years later, and now being a DM myself, I might just have given the player the damn book. Due to life situations, the campaign came to a halt, and we never resumed it. But I know for sure that my friend had no intention of keeping War Cleric in the group any longer. I agree that had to be pretty annoying, though I do have to disagree with OP when they said that DM should have just given War Cleric the book. He was acting like a child, and like someone dealing with a child that's throwing a fit, you never give in to their demands, because that would have just shown them that that behavior would get them what they wanted, and would have probably happened again down the road. Let's move on to the next one. Lone Wolf Player is making me lose my mind. By Reddit user, Hidden Gems. I have a friend in my current 5e game that I am bending over backwards for, but it seems like they are not satisfied with anything. The major thing is that they are mostly online, save the occasional weekend that they are able to visit and play in person, while the rest of the table meets in person every weekend. This hybrid model is one that I'm just getting familiar with, and I think it's exacerbating the issues that I will mention in a moment. I understand that it's frustrating, since it's easy for them to be talked over at the table. They say something, and sometimes it's hard for me and the other players to hear them, and I get how that's aggravating. It's also been a process trying to get the right equipment so they can be properly heard and can hear what's going on. When we ask for clarification on something they said, however, they get mad and dismissive. We ask if they're sure they want to move on several times, and when we actually do, the player gets mad, mutes their mic, rolls their eyes, etc. I've asked the other players to cut down on the side chatter and engage with them more, and that brings me to my next problem. They're hardly engaging with the party. The only character that they engage with is the one that belongs to their best friend, who they almost cling to. They entirely shut down roleplay with the rest of the party, even when they try to engage with this player about subjects that their character should be interested in. I think that they don't like the other players at the table due to some conversations that they have had with me outside of the table. They've made some unsavory comments about my other players, such how they don't approve of some of their lifestyle choices. The other players are now starting to notice, and they are not happy about it. They're hardly engaging with this player because of this, and that leads me to my next problem. The character that my friend is playing is a lone wolf archetype. They wander off from the party, withhold any information from the party that they gather, don't engage with the party members save for one person, and generally spend the session brooding. They're also actively hostile to the majority of my NPCs, even ones that are trying to help them. Because of this, they are not developing relationships with the other party members, NPCs, or the world itself. The player also told me that they didn't like the pacing of my game, and that it was too roleplay focused, even though I said that this game was going to be roleplay heavy when they joined. I tried to pick up the pace with more combat, puzzles, etc., and they just steamroll through these things, and I don't think they're actually enjoying what I'm trying to do for them. I'm also joining another table as a player with this person, and session 0 hasn't occurred, and there are already issues. The player made a carbon copy of my player character for this game, save for the class and gender. My dungeon master put a stop to that, however, so now she has a new player character. I love my friend, and D&D is one of their only outlets at the moment, but they get mad when their character or story is not at the center of attention. But when the other players and I do put this player in the spotlight, they vehemently reject it. All of this has been frustrating, and I'm actually taking a few weeks off from my game, partially because of this whole mess. I would rather not kick her, but I am at my wit's end. Well, first, for this player to be passive-aggressive to the other players due to their life choices, all I got to say to that is, if it doesn't affect her life or isn't hurting anybody, it's none of her damn business how the other people live their lives. Second, if you're going through all kinds of loops, like making it that she can still play the game by setting up and, I assume, purchasing computer equipment, and she's acting like this, then she has absolutely no respect for OP in my opinion. Sure, she may be going through some personal stuff, but that shouldn't be taken out on other people that have nothing to do with it. I'd say just talk to her privately about these issues, and if that doesn't solve anything, then tell her that perhaps she doesn't vibe with your game. Because like OP said, they did tell her that it was roleplay heavy before she joined. Sure, it might make things at the other game with OP as a player a little awkward, but it would be better than having her bring down your game for you and the other players at your table. Though, what are your thoughts on this one? Let's move on. Another horror story, another uncomfortable woman, by Reddit user, Stupid Little Duck. So, I joined an online game not too long ago that also planned on streaming the game. It was 3 other guys and the DM. I was the only woman to join, and I was significantly younger than all of them. I joined, made a cleric, and played my first session. It went okay, was a little slow, and it became obvious that everyone wasn't quite in the groove yet. Though, come to find out that the DM is a replacement for the old one that had to step down. I get on Discord the next day to chat with a friend, and the DM starts to talk to me. It starts off normal, with gamish talk or him complimenting my character work. After a while, it devolves. He asks me what I'm doing, and I tell him that I'm contemplating dyeing my hair again. He then asks for me to send pics, and since I've already shown my face since we video called for the game, I saw no harm in sending a selfie of the previous hair colors I had. His response was, The first one, you seem like a bad bitch who would peg me. And the second one, you're kinda hiding. Well, that took a turn pretty quickly. Now, I was extremely uncomfortable by this comment, but I assumed this may have just been his humor. He then started to state his gripes about previous relationships and how women don't treat him right. He somehow found a way to tell me, "I don't know, dear, you're hot and sexy," and that this meant that I was dateable and not just effable. He then sent me a selfie and asked me the age-old question of smash or pass. I just said, I don't know, and then did not send another message. At that point, I left the group because there was absolutely no way I was staying after that train wreck. One of the players messaged me and I told him what happened, with screenshots. They then told me that the DM was new, a replacement for their old one who got busy, and that they barely knew the guy. He even said that we may not have done a lot to vet the guy. Moral of the story, vet your players and dungeon masters better. Well, that dude went from friendly inquiry to creepy pretty quick. I don't blame OP for leaving the group after that interaction. I swear, I will never understand some people and how they think it's entirely okay and normal to interact with people like that. Though, I would look on the bright side. At least that creep showed his true colors early, instead of months down the line after OP already invested a lot of time into the game. So, silver linings, I guess? Though, one thing I know for sure is that I think we deserve a kitty intermission after that one. They all got a new tree, and I think it's a bit of a hit. But with that, let's move on. Non-combatants and mounts get an equal share of the XP. By Reddit user, The Water American. My 5e group has been playing a milestone-based progression system for about 5 years. Then we moved to our first XP-based game, and it was a total disaster. The most obvious issue is that we only got XP for combat, and solving a prepared encounter non-violently meant 0 XP, meaning we had several sessions where we received no XP at all for a 6-hour game. This was pretty important because the late game was unforgiving difficulty-wise. About 3 sessions in, we finally left the main city and were tasked with escorting a character to another location. The paladin uses Find Steed, and the party buys another mount for the journey. Along the way, the party encounters 2 more NPCs, both non-combatants and with no stat blocks, and they don't even get tokens during fights. We rescue them from a zombie horde, and then we end the session there. The DM calculates the XP and says, "So there are 5 of you, but you have 2 mounts and you're escorting 3 people. So the total XP is split between 10 people." We argued with the DM for a bit, saying that the NPCs don't have levels, and that the steed is summoned, and the last 2 NPCs joined us at the last second of the session. The DM puts his foot down though, and says that this is the way it's going to be. In the following session, we insisted that if the people that we were escorting got XP, they should be able to help in combat. The DM agreed, and that is when we gave him enough rope to hang himself. The first random encounter of the night was a pack of wild axebeaks. The axebeaks won the initiative, and the DM killed 2 of the NPCs, including our quest giver, before we even had a chance to act. When the third died, the DM was furious, claiming that it was metagaming for us to not protect them, especially since doing so was part of our quest. We reminded him that he chose to have the monsters attack the NPCs, who didn't even have a stat block, and he chose not to give the NPC death saves. The only thing we asked for is that they got tokens on the map. He did the rest. From that encounter, the DM abruptly ended the session and didn't talk to any of us for like a week. Then he came back with the standard party-only XP rules, acting like nothing happened. But the NPCs were still dead. Now, I have never been in a game with XP, as all the games I'm in use milestone leveling. But even I know that that is not how you do XP. If you make it that the party only gets XP for killing things, then that takes all the reason to solve anything diplomatically and throws it out the window. Then to say that all the NPCs also get XP when they don't do anything in battle is another BS move on that DM's part. I mean, even the horses? And to top that all off, DM gets mad that the NPCs died when he was the one that made it happen? Sure, the DM fixed the XP issue in regards to just the players getting it eventually, but with everything else in this game, I don't think this horror story has quite finished yet. And I get a feeling that we will eventually see an update. But until then, let's move on to today's final story. Joined a group of a friend. Both quickly regretted it. By Reddit user, Gosley Cat. Oh geez, where to start? I've never done one of these. Okay, so I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons for years now, ever since I was 11, and it's always been with the same friend group until I got out of high school. After that, I joined some online groups, with only one lasting longer than 2 sessions. I'm still in the group today, and the adventure is awesome, but they are not important to the story. What is important to the story is that in that campaign, I play a small-sized Owlin bladeslinger who's a little ditzy and unable to lie due to a fey creature. I made her to be a sassy little speedster who has a sword for every spell, and their sheaths are in her spellbooks. I really love the character and got some art done of her. A friend from work recently approached me and said that a friend of theirs is looking for people to DM for in real life games, and asked if I wanted to join them, and I was totally down. I get invited to Discord, and the DM does an online session 0 for me. I tell them my character idea, and send the art of my Owlin character.
So you are playing an owl girl short stack?
I think it's a joke, and laugh, before explaining that I just didn't explain to the artist to make her look more gender neutral and thick because I was too polite. They laugh too and say,
Okay, cool.
I then explain how I would like to flavor my spellbook and my swords, and he says,
Okay, sure.
Finally, they ask what things I don't want to see in the campaign are, and I just say, the usual, and nothing about things getting ran over by vehicles, and explain that due to past trauma, it really takes away from my experience, and I basically get PTSD flashbacks. I should have explained that the usual is sexual stuff. A few weeks later, we go up to their house, ready for a starter one-shot, just so everyone can become comfortable with each other, and we're playing our characters just a few levels up to get comfortable. I bring along snacks and all that jazz, really excited for my first in-person campaign since COVID. We start with all of our characters naked in a cell, described in excruciating details about our characters' genitals. I should have just got up right there, but I raised my hand to make a complaint. I don't know why, don't ask me. And the dungeon master just keeps going. He describes how a minotaur grabbed my character out of the cell, and the adventure starts. My friend, a Leonin barbarian, busts everyone out of the cells, and they start searching around. They then find my character being raped by a pair of minotaurs. At that point, I just take my stuff and leave. My friend thankfully follows because he was my ride, and we head out. It lasted barely an hour, and it was already a train wreck. What's worse is that I really loved this character, and now it just feels ruined for me. I barely feel like playing her in my other campaigns, because all I can think about is that BS. Jesus, talk about how not to welcome a new player to your table. Even if the dungeon master didn't realize that the usual meant no SA in game, to start off a new player with that happening to their character is extremely messed up. Maybe he thought, I'm going to show this new player how edgy and serious my campaigns are. They will think I'm so cool. But all he got was -2 players. It is a shame to hear that this made OP not want to play that character anymore. But my advice on that front would be to just move forward and play the character in your other campaign anyway. Don't let some douchebag ruin a character that you were so hyped about. And besides, I would bet that after 2 or 3 sessions of playing it with a DM that isn't a psychopath would counterbalance that, as I'll admit, it does sound like a pretty unique character. But that will do it for today. As always, I appreciate all of you, and may your games remain horror story free. Until next time.